Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the second episode with Sylvia Gallusser. This is your host, Maria Taiji, and this is Future Hacker. Sylvia, welcome back. So let's keep going. Our first international interview was with Dr. Aubrey de Grey about the fight against aging. I understand this is one of your dear topics, as it could improve humanity's life quality in general by considering aging a disease, which could be somehow preventable, right? It's not about treating illnesses after they emerge, but preventing chronic diseases from happening in the first place. So my first question to you about this subject is, could you please walk us through the roadmap to abolishing aging?
Sure. A dark vision of life extension is that even if humans achieve to live much longer, the end-of-life condition won't be a harmonious one, but a declining one. Even if we fight diseases one by one, some believe that we are unable to suppress the effects of the aging process itself. So for centuries, conventional medicine, aging has remained relatively unstudied, while the focus has been on studying and curing individual diseases. But there is now a whole new field of study around the biology of aging itself and how aging is making diseases more likely. And it's called geroscience. Slowly, we've been moving from a model, let's call it, of independence among diseases, each of them being treated separately and aging being left aside as incurable, to a more recent model based on causation, with aging at the center of the model. The second model, the causation model, relies on the hypothesis that if we would delay aging, so the root cause of chronic diseases, then we will also suppress the symptoms and the manifestations of aging, namely the single chronic diseases. So linked to that is the famous Gompertz law of mortality, according to which, after the age of 35, the human mortality rate doubles every 8 years. However, Gompertz law is not a fixed law of biology. If we succeed in suppressing the roots of aging, we will flatten the curve and consequently decrease the probability and impact of chronic diseases. Some researchers even look further and try to reverse completely the trend and to abolish aging. So there we come to your question. One of the most popular and well-supported theory is synthesized in the Hallmarks of Aging. It's a 2013 paper that defined aging as 9 distinct categories called hallmarks. The paper also explains how these hallmarks are intertwined and interact with each other to drive the development of age-related diseases. These hallmarks include cellular senescence, telomere attrition, genomic instability, stem cell exhaustion, and epigenetic alterations, to name a few. You were mentioning Aubrey de Grey. Let me say I'm humbled to be speaking after him here on this podcast. I'm a huge fan of his work myself. Well, the SENSE Research Foundation, which he created, is an active player in research strategy for aging and rejuvenation biotechnology. Rejuvenation, it's one of the life extension strategies, among others. And it consists in reversing the aging processes itself and restoring youth and health by acting on these hallmarks of aging we were just mentioning. For example, through stem cell therapy and senolytic agents. So you're asking me about the roadmap to abolishing aging. A few factors are currently in favor of abolishing aging, and the horizon we hear about today is 2040. These factors include economic incentive to longevity, as healthy people are net positive contributors to society. Also, investing in rejuvenation biotechnology will avoid spiraling costs of chronic diseases and end-of-life care. The biggest, most powerful companies in the world are now putting more and more effort behind healthy life extension, and crowdfunding has become an alternative way of funding projects and to support the effort as well. In addition to that, transformational technologies of the fourth industrial revolution are now becoming sufficiently mature to sustain the effort. So we're talking about nanotech, biotech, ITC, and cognitive science here. Then we can add to that the 1 million rejuveneers. So rejuveneers are engineers in rejuvenation biotechnology. So 1 million rejuveneers are trained and now willing to collaborate. And finally, human beings are eager of equal rights, so they are a strong force to help this movement. They demand positive action to counteract aging, as our civilization deeply value human life. However, one last thing, abolishing aging advocates still need to remove a few roadblocks and quite consequent roadblocks. Among these, the current unstable environment we live in. Environmental disaster, sanitary crisis, economic collapse, political chaos, corruption, social breakdown. We might meet research insufficiency as well, technical difficulties, but also lack of funding or diversion of research effort. And it's even bigger since COVID because medical research budgets have been reallocated to COVID and vaccines research. We might also lack positive collaboration with infighting, missed alliances. And most of all, among the public, there's also a kind of rejection, with many people actually preferring aging acceptance, and they want to minimize risks of social inequity and the specter of an uncanny valley.
Wow, 2040 seems so close to me. That's very ambitious to say that, right? You just mentioned the risk of social inequity, right? It seems to me that all those tech advancements that we've been talking about here at Future Hacker will be accessible only to very few fortunate people, as it happens today, who will be able to afford those treatments. So how do you see this becoming something inclusive in which everybody would benefit? Or maybe this is something not possible to reach, like a full inclusive society?
You're absolutely right, Maria. I actually consider research and social progress as two separate streams. On the one hand, aging and rejuvenating specialists dedicate their effort to solving the aging issue. So here we are talking about scientific progress and possibly human augmentation. On the other hand, I believe social movements, citizen actions, lobbies, political forces, they are here to fight for making progress more inclusive. And here we are talking about social progress. I don't really see well-aging as a topic that demands a specific inclusive effort. I mean, all scientific progress made since the beginning of times should be accessible to all of us, or so is my belief. And advancements in aging technologies are just another instance of scientific progress that need to spread to all. Same as prosthetic limbs, organ transplants, or medically assisted procreation are becoming mainstream over time. But then we also have to be realistic, and the model needs to be economically viable as well. At first, new enhancements are expensive, and we need a few forerunners to pay for and benefit from them until scientific progress reaches all social economic categories, and most of us can then afford it. This is similar with technological progress in other areas. Let's take transportation. At first, new vehicles such as the car were limited to a few. But capitalist processes being at work, when there's increase in demand, there will most likely be increase in supply. And with economies of scale and competition, prices will ultimately drop and new technology will get democratized. In addition to this, I believe in public policies, insurance policies, and universal healthcare. These are means to achieve democratization, inclusiveness, and overall social progress.
That's such a great answer, Sylvia. It actually made me somehow optimistic, about it. Do you believe gene editing experiments and other related scientific studies should happen no matter what for the sake of future findings? Or regulation and ethics discussions should take place sooner rather than later? So the big questions regarding investing in discoveries versus enhancements.
Well, while I believe that all of us should enjoy the same available therapies, so once again, social progress, I do not believe that all therapies or treatments are great for humankind, so human progress. I believe in having ethical committees composed of multidisciplinary individuals able to consider the many aspects of the question. I am not personally in a position to declare what enhancement is good or bad for humankind. And please note that I didn't say I support rejuvenation, and I didn't say the opposite either. I profoundly believe in collective intelligence on this and wisdom of crowd to decide for the direction we want to give humankind. To give you an example related to the pandemic, so I was recently part of that think tank dedicated to the reopening of schools in California. The think tank was composed of specialists in hygiene, healthcare, there were doctors, virologists, but also educators, children's psychologists, school administrators, but also of parents as well. So the variety of profiles helps to make a balanced decision and design the most viable reopening plan, taking into account sanitary requirements, social distancing, face coverings, fever control, but also parents' constraints, need for childcare, worries about their child's safety, and finally the educational and mental health aspects. Young children also need social interaction and experiential learning. So wise decisions, ethical decisions are better made in small groups of experts, practitioners, but also people who are directly exposed to the situation. In the case you are describing, gene editing, it would be hypocritical to not include people in need of such treatments in the discussion. Another aspect I would like to mention, which I think is really important, is I don't consider the topic of aging from the technology perspective only. We need to replace well-aging into a more holistic perspective, a multidisciplinary approach. First of all, everybody can work on postponing their own aging with an appropriate lifestyle based on nutrition and healthy eating, physical activity and regular exercising, social bonding, and enriching community experiences. Stimulating intellectual activities, creative and artistic expression, and spiritual openness based on gratitude. So then, only then, medicine and nutritive complementation act as prosthesis when lifestyle is not enough. And finally, third step, advancements in biotechnology, robotics, bionics intervene, or maybe they intervene for individuals who have specific needs following a genetic condition, a disease, or an accident. So perhaps this last stage won't be available to all of us at first, but I think there's still a lot we can do to prevent accelerated aging and to help people get empowered over their own condition. Well-aging can be accessible to most of us through awareness campaigns, ongoing education, and individualized support to improve our lifestyle. And I like to imagine jobs of the future. And I believe one of them could be something like holistic aging specialist or well-aging life coach, something like that. And these professionals, they could help us go through the full well-aging checklist and provide customized advice based on individual conditions.
That definitely sounds like a good example of the profession of the future, Sylvia. And for people that are interested in knowing more about the future of aging, please note that Sylvia is offering a class about it. So stay tuned. At the end of the interview, Sylvia is letting us know how to get in touch with her. Moving on, following that line of thoughts about how technology can improve and augment humans' life, we get into transhumanism, which we also have been covering a lot here and is another focus of Sylvia's studies. So as much as we could go back to the discussion about, what's acceptable or not, something that you did mention in a podcast that many subjects that were once considered taboos in the past, such as blood transfusion and vaccination and birth control, they are nowadays mainstream. So thinking about that, as the technologies evolve, humanity evolves as well. So still, we need to ask questions and provoke discussions. Like that's actually one of the reasons we created Future Hacker after all. So could you please share with us innovation in these fields that are closer to come to our reality and how it will impact our lives? And how to make sure we have an ethical framework in place to make sure technology will be used to make a positive impact in the world?
I love that question, Maria. Very challenging and really a great question. You have certainly heard a few days ago about DeepMind winning this year's protein folding competition and solving a 50-year-old biology challenge with their AlphaFold 2. Well, it is a game changer for analyzing the cause of diseases, and it will definitely open up a brand new field for medicines and biological manipulation. More largely, solving this secret source of human body complexity adds to the possibility of reenacting the creation of human life. So in other words, such an achievement positions humankind as capable to understand and reproduce its own design, making us closer to Homo Deus. In addition to this recent piece of news, there are many things going on in different fields linked to transhumanism. Those I find the most exciting, I try to narrow down to 3, are probably space colonization, mind uploading, and cryonics. Cryonics are about high-fidelity preservation of human body and brain in anticipation of possible future revival. Cryonics have been very present in our collective imagination and pop culture for decades. And we might sometimes get confused about what's possible, what are the latest developments, and what's the state of the art, especially because there are also hoaxes from organizations offering eternal life. As of today, if low temperature freezing and storage of a human corpse is currently possible and even already commercialized, the second part, resurrection itself, hasn't proven feasible so far because revival would require repairing damage from lack of oxygen, also from cryoprotectant toxicity, from thermal stress and fracturing, from freezing in tissues, and finally, we would ultimately need to be able to reverse the cause of death. So that's still quite a program. Second, mind uploading. So mind uploading consists in scanning the physical structure of a brain and copying it to a computer, so in digital form. This type of brain emulation opens up a wide range of questions, fascinating, such as, can we preserve and reproduce someone's consciousness and sense of identity? What about multiple copies made and living their own life? Do they keep a unique identity? Also, where is the boundary? Who is the most human between an artificially enhanced human with robotic prosthesis, a genetically modified human, and a robot with a downloaded human mind? It can become quite vertiginous. Ken Hayworth is the president of the Brain Preservation Foundation. He's hoping to achieve the preservation of an entire human brain at death through chemicals and cryonics. But to fuel emulation of a human brain, it's not expected to happen before 50 years. One of the current challenges is to go beyond the capture of static map of neurons and include complete electrical activity. So far, researchers have been able to reproduce one connectome of 300 neurons and 7,000 connections. A brain, it's composed of approximately 90 billion neurons. So I let you appreciate how much work still lies ahead. And finally, space colonization. A year ago, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said it would take 1,000 spaceships and 1 million tons of vitamin C to make life on Mars sustainable, underlining there that a colony would need to be self-sustainable. However, space traveling and terraforming is not enough for successful space colonization. Space colonization is related to transhumanism in the sense that living on another planet would require us to artificially adapt or upgrade our organism to these new conditions in order to breathe, get nutrients, to maintain a muscle mass, and to survive higher or lower temperature and pressure. Philosophically, it draws the question of our condition, not only as humans, but as Earthlings, and the potentiality for the development of a new human lineage in a separate environment. Research in the field is not just about how to terraform alternative planets, but also how to cosmoform our human body to be ready for life in space. The topic of evolutionary mechanism and environmental limits of living beings is currently recognized by the NASA Astrobiology Roadmap as one of the scientific objectives to be addressed. Different approaches developed by the field of synthetic biology, such as genetic engineering or synthetic molecules, could theoretically provide biological tools for short-term adaptation for spaceflight, but we are now looking for longer adaptation in multiple space contexts, and that has still some way to go. So among these 3 future innovations, I would probably bet on space colonization. I know it's not the one everybody would choose, but I actually think we're closer to that because re-engineering of the human body to embrace space life, we're already not so far from it. There's already a lot of incremental progress. It's not like a new exponential progress we will need to make. We're probably more on an incremental road. There's already lots of experimentation done on astronauts. There's significant funding in the space research and many active players, private players in the field. And finally, I believe there's also more urgency as we seek alternatives to life on Earth given climate change, warfare threats, and pandemics.
Sylvia, I can see that just one podcast with you is just not enough. You have so much content. We have so much to cover that definitely next year you have to come back again to talk to us. So unfortunately, we'll have to end our interview. We're out of time, but I can't end it without asking the questions that we always ask our guests. Do you consider yourself optimistic about our future and that we'll be able to live in an inclusive and sustainable society, maybe on Earth or maybe in another planet, as we're talking, in a more general way? Or do you think that the road we're driving today is going towards a darker place?
That's a great question, Maria. Here, I need to split my identities between being a strategic foresight practitioner and being a future fiction writer. I mentioned earlier that foresight practitioners thrive themselves to consider different scenarios, and we need to go through this multiple future step constantly every time we approach a new topic, so that we are not tempted to throw ourselves in the same biased direction all the time. Then I explore all of the scenarios with my clients and we design action plans to prepare for these potential futures. And I also help them create their own preferred future. And that's what we like to call urgent optimism. But then, as a writer, I have developed an interest in exploring let's call it the sweet nostalgia topic. I have been an advocate of technology in many ways, helping numerous startups get their product out. So of course, I love technology. But at the same time, I observe in many occurrences that human beings are attached to what I call tech-free bubbles. Human beings love to be connected, but they also do enjoy very much the disconnecting, the return to nature, and the in-person communion. Why do you think the virus is still spreading? It's because people are meeting in person, even if we have recommendation not to do so. And even super high-tech CEOs do not like to spend their free time just on technology. They like to spend their free time exercising, retreating, connecting with nature. And the pandemic has revealed even more how attached we are to keeping tech-free bubbles in our lives. As soon as we could, we'd rush out to breathe the exterior air, to enjoy nature's resource. We enjoy lively neighborhood conversations and we practice sport or meditation. Art creation has never been so flourishing. So I believe in a technology supercharged world with tech-free bubbles and no tech lands as times, as I like to name them. So that's the very concept actually at the core of Silicon Humanism.
I love it. I love it, Sylvia. Thank you so much for being with us. And please, I'd like to leave it open so you can let us listeners know how to reach you, how to get in touch with you in case they'd like to know more about everything that you talked with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maria. So sure, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. We also have a page for Silicon Humanism where we share information and insight on what we're doing, but also what is happening in the field, which is so fascinating. This was really a pleasure for me having this conversation with you, and I wish Future Hacker a fruitful and happy future.
Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.